Okay, all right. Well, it's 4:02, so we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you everyone for joining us. So this session is called Sharing Knowledge and Inspiring Growth. It'll be a showcase of our PDC scholarship recipients. Dan, can you click the PowerPoint because I lost clicking ability?
To do what? I'm sorry?
Just click the PowerPoint.
Okay, got it.
Thank you.
Good job. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So our agenda will just be me giving you a little bit of information about the PDC in case anyone's unaware of who we are and what we do. And then we'll have presentations by our scholarship recipients. So today we have with us Eleonora Hicks from sociology. We have Oliver Rosales from history and Christy Wilson from nursing. And so they're going to share a bit about what they learned and took away from their PDC funded scholarships. And then we'll save time for questions. Great, so PDC, if you're unaware, stands for Professional Development Committee. So we are a committee here on campus, and we are comprised of faculty, classified, and admin. So we are a joint committee here on campus. And our mission is to support professional development opportunities for all of those employee groups and promote interaction and help develop our sense of campus community through professional development. So we're really focused on helping everyone achieve their professional development goals. There are 3 co-chairs representing each of those groups. So I am the faculty co-chair. My name is Sarah Manuel. I'm in the psychology or behavioral science department. I teach psychology. Our administrative co-chair is Dean Christy Howell, and our classified co-chair is Anita Carr. All right, so as a committee, we have several goals. One of our goals is actually we work with our academic technology department to help with professional development activities. In part, we kind of help with organizing Flex Week and Flex Sessions with Dan and our academic technology team. We also have our PDC scholarship that we provide funding so that people can attain different professional development activities, things like conferences or other events. And then we hope that they kind of return that back to campus. We work to help improve the assessment of professional development activities here on campus and improve professional development, but also keep an eye on things like equity as well as accessibility. But what we're going to focus on today is our PDC scholarship. So we offer a small scholarship. I know some of us hear scholarship and we're like, ooh, very exciting. It is a small scholarship. It's up to $500. And this is to help any of our employee groups, so faculty, staff, administration, everyone is welcome to apply, achieve some kind of professional development goal. And that goal can really be kind of anything that they think is best suiting for them. So it could be attending a conference, kind of one of the big ones that we see. It could be traveling and touring a specific site or location that relates to their field. It could be anything that they think best fits whatever their professional development needs are. It could be taking a training course. It could really be anything. But what we do as a committee is ask that they come back to the campus community and share what they learned and bring that back and try to disseminate that professional development to other employees. If you are interested in applying for our scholarship, you can find our application on our website. So this is a screenshot of the Professional Development Committee website. It's under resources, and if you scroll down to forms, it's the first link under forms. And you can fill out that scholarship and please submit it to our classified co-chair, Anita Carr. And then as a committee, we review the applications. There's a bit of a voting process, and then we get back to you as soon as we can and let you know about your application and the funding for your event. Okay. Are there any questions about our scholarship? Or what PDC does, who we are? Okay, so with that, I will turn it over to our presentations by our scholarship recipients. So today we have with us Eleonora Hicks, who will be presenting in person. Then we'll have Oliver Rosales on Zoom and Christy Wilson on Zoom as well. So a hybrid session. And then after each presentation, we can save time for some questions, and then we'll have those kind of general questions at the end. So I'll turn things over to Ellen. And then Dan, if you could switch PowerPoints.
Oh, yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So I never use these.
I will say.
Good. Is it that way to move forward, that way to move back? Okay. We'll practice real quick. That way. Move forward, good. Okay, very cool. Thank you. All right, hi, everybody. My name is Eleanor Hicks. I'm a sociologist in the behavioral science department. And this summer, let's see, I'm gonna time myself here at the same time, so I'm not going overtime.
Oh, you know what? I'm so sorry, Eleanor. I forgot to do a new share.
Okay.
Which is this. Okay, we're on now.
All right. So this summer, I got some funding to visit Krakow, Poland. And I'm going to share some of my experiences while visiting Krakow. And especially so, I'm going to be focusing on what happened at the onset of World War II to the academics who were working at the time in Krakow. I'm also going to explain how I can apply this learning experience to the classroom as well. All right, so first of all, where is Krakow, Poland? Realize now when I look at the big screen that I should have probably circled it for y'all. So Poland is this big massive area right here bordering Germany to the east. Krakow is right in the southern part of Poland, right here where I'm pointing, and Dan is, thank you, just a little bit north of the border to Slovakia. I want you to keep in mind where Krakow is in relation to Wrocław, which is north, let's see here, west of Krakow, and Berlin, even further in Germany. All right, so while in Krakow, I took several guided tours. One of the tours I took was of Auschwitz-Birkenau, which was the largest German Nazi concentration and extermination center that was operational between 1940, just about April of 1940, until liberation in January of 1945. About 1,300,000 people were imprisoned in Auschwitz-Birkenau, and about 1,100,000 died in this place. 1,100,000 died in this place. I also toured the Jewish quarters in Krakow. This is a place where a lot of the Jewish population lived before the onset of World War II. About 75,000 Jewish people lived in these quarters. Before they were exiled, either exiled or placed in the Jewish ghetto at the start of World War II. I also toured the ghetto. About 20 to 25,000 Jewish people were exiled into the ghettos after the invasion by Nazi Germany. They lived on 50 acres. So imagine that 20 to 25,000 people on 50 acres of land. They were surrounded by walls that you see on the right-hand picture here. These were 9-foot walls that surrounded the Jewish ghetto. They were meant, each panel here was meant to resemble Jewish tombstones. You see a commemorative plaque in the middle of the wall here that is written in both Jewish and in Hebrew. And it states that here they lived, suffered, and died at the hands of German torturers. From here, they begin their final journey to the death camps. On the left-hand side, you see one of the buildings in the ghetto. And if you look really closely, you can see the bullet holes in the walls where the Nazis fired towards the building to flush out the Jews to round them up. And if you look really closely, you can see I got caught in a rainstorm as well.
I made it too dark. I was just trying to darken the front. I also visited Oskar Schindler's enamel factory. Now, the enamel factory looks a lot different today compared to in the past. You can see the enamel factory in the background and Oskar Schindler himself on the left-hand side of this image.
If you know anything about Oscar Schindler, you might have watched the movie Schindler's List. He was a businessman and had failed in many business ventures prior to his enamel factory. But he mainly employed a Jewish labor force because they would work for less money than what other people would in Poland at the time. So it was mainly to begin with a business decision to increase profits. But it seems like he developed a connection with his the people who worked with him. And if you know his story, he did end up saving with his list of 1,200 Jews through his connections and through bribery as well. Finally, I visited the Jagiellonian University in Krakow as well. And this is where I'm going to focus on the fate of the academics who either worked here or retired here at the onset of the World War II. At the onset of World War II, this happened with the invasion of the German Nazi armies into Poland on September 1st of 1939. One of the first things they did was a systematic effort to destroy Polish culture. They started by renaming cities, renaming streets. They stole art, books, precious metals. They destroyed cultural institutions such as museums, libraries, monuments. They also destroyed educational institutions as well. They started to restrict education. According to the Nazis, the Polish were to be a labor force for the Nazis. And as a labor force, they weren't really necessarily needing much education. So they started to either destroy educational institutions or restricting education and the type of education received. And finally, they started to exterminate elites. People such as political leaders, doctors, teachers, journalists, the clergy, along with college professors. And this didn't really matter if you were actively opposing the invasion or if you had the potential to do so because of your social standing. No matter what, these groups were targeted. The professors in Krakow were not spared from this fate. On November 6th, Bruno Müller, he was an SS lieutenant colonel during the Nazi German invasion of Poland. He commanded the rector of the Jagiellonian University to gather up all the faculty because he wanted to hold a meeting with them in order to explain the standpoint on education of the new invading force. Well, the rector did as they were told, and they gathered retirees, actively working professors across not only the Jagiellonian University, but also other institutions in Poland as well. 183 professors showed up on this day. You can see some of them imaged on this picture. But Müller, he never held a meeting. Instead, they were met by police and taken to the prison in Krakow. In Krakow prison, they spent about 4 days. They didn't really know their fate. Family members were able to visit them with some care packages, but they weren't really told what their fate was going to be. On the 10th of November, they were transferred into a prison in Wrocław. You remember I said, keep this in mind on the map, about a little further northwest of Krakow, right? You have Wrocław, and that's where they were held until November 27th. Now, they weren't really told what was going to happen to them. They were just basically told, we're going to transport you, and that was it. They thought they were going back to Krakow, but when they started to notice that they were going up north, they realized that they were not going back to Krakow again. They weren't charged with any charges. Instead, their only crime was the fact that they had an academic degree. So they were placed in a concentration camp north of Berlin, Sachsenhausen. concentration camp. Now, while there, they were assigned a number, and they were also assigned a red triangle badge, which basically marked them as a political prisoner. They were assigned barracks that were totally overcrowded to the point where you had to kind of share a bunk with another person for sleep. There was no heat, and if you think about Northern Europe, during this time, you know, you're talking about end of November, beginning December at this point, it's cold. It's really cold, and there was no heat. So the heat on the inside was basically what it was on the outside. They had insufficient clothing, suffered from lack of medical aid. They're cold, insufficient nutrition. They had to endure hour-long roll calls 3 times a day, mistreatment by prison guards. And by December 1939, the first few professors perished because of malnutrition and sickness. In order to keep hopes up, they began to, they continued something that they began in War Club prison, and that was they held a number of academic talks. Now, this was kind of forbidden in the concentration camp because this would, you know, create unity between people. That was not something that was very popular, but they did this in secret. And they even invited, there was about 1,100 or so Czech students that were in prison because they had been protesting the closure of a university in Prague. And they started to invite them to these talks as well. Now, the international, some of these professors, they had world-renowned reputations. So the international response was pretty broad. There were articles published in press in many countries about what happened to the Krakow professors. European universities and academies started to protest. The Swedish Academy of Sciences tried to intervene. You have letters by other professors across the world. If you think about your academic connections, for example, that you have now across different institutions, it wasn't anything different back then. Perhaps the way to communicate was a little different, right? But so there were professors in other parts of the world that tried to intervene on their, colleagues' behalves. The Hungarian authorities got involved in behalf of a couple of professors that were married to Hungarian wives. There was an appeal made by the Yugoslavian diplomat in Berlin. This Yugoslavian diplomat had actually been educated in Krakow. And so they knew some of the professors and appealed and tried to intervene on their behalf. But personally, what really intrigues me is the story of, my apologies for the pronunciation, Italian Luciana Frassati Gabronska. She's pictured right here. She was married to a Polish ambassador in Vienna. And so she had a diplomat's passport. At this time, after the German invasion, the Polish government really never kind of gave up, but they had to flee. So they were kind of like in exile. And she got as a task by the exile government to deliver a written report with names of the professors to Rome. So she hid this letter in a fur coat and traveled to Rome and delivered it to the Vatican and even Mussolini himself. And supposedly, Mussolini intervened on the part of the professors. And we can see that a group of 101 professors were released and let go on February 8, 1940. They were taken to the prison in Krakow on this day, and in Krakow, they had to sign a letter stating that they didn't suffer any physical detriment or mental health detriment by their imprisonment in the concentration camp, and they also had to promise to let go of their academic professions. And this was 101 professors. Remember, about a dozen died between December of 1939 and February of 1940. And the Jewish professors were never released. November 6th is an academic day of remembrance in Poland. This is a day that people go to visit the grave sites. Academic talks are held and remembrance ceremonies are performed. My apologies, it does look like those pictures got a little, maybe those two screens are a little bit more visible. So what can I take out of this for my classroom? As a sociologist, I study societies and I study social relationships between groups of people. Here's the thing, I can't really understand social relationships today unless I understand how those relationships have worked. So as a sociologist, I really need a foundation in history as well. So to help my students enhance their understanding of the link between social structure today and historical context, I need to be able to have a good understanding of that. This is something we call the sociological imagination in my field of study, is the ability to see the link between historical context, cultural context, and what happens in individual lives. So by getting a little bit more of an immersive experience in this history, I'm better able to facilitate discussions in corporate materials in the classroom about such extreme forms of oppression and prejudice attitudes into my classrooms. I'm also better able to foster empathy and perhaps critically thinking about our social responsibility as global communities in human rights issues, for example. With that being said, I'm looking a little bit at the clock here, and it looks like I'm at time. Well, I'm also done. So, I'm also done. I'm at time and I'm done. So thank you so much for listening to my experience in St. Krakow. There's a lot more to say, but and I'll be happy to answer any questions that I can at the end of this session. So I'll let it over to the Zoom folks. Yeah. I don't know, do I click out of this or chats or anything?
We do not.
All right.
I've been to Saxon House.
I started looking up if it's open to the public.
And
I would
Oliver,
love to hear
did you have
your-
a presentation you wanted to share?
I was hoping to do a screen share.
So just for time, we'll hold questions about the presentations until the end, then we can ask questions of Eleonora or Oliver or Christy if we have questions, just to make sure everyone gets to do their presentations. Okay, we'll turn things over to Oliver.
Oliver, go ahead.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead. Wait, I think I need to send a request to screen share.
Okay. Yep. Ready? And
Okay, I think it's coming up. Can you all see my screen?
yes.
Can you all see? Okay, cool. So thank you, Professor Hicks, for that super interesting presentation. I wish I got to go to Poland for my project. So what I did for mine is I had the chance to attend the Digital Humanities Conference in Washington, D.C. in August of 2024. This was my first time attending the DH conference, which has been around for some time, and it's an international conference, as I came to understand. And so I'll sort of tell briefly the story about how I came to go to the conference and what I took out of it. So as I mentioned, the conference was in DC. It was at George Mason University. And I think my interest in digital humanities, and I'll break that down in a minute, because for many historians, some of us know what that means and some don't. Historians are very paper-based. We're used to going into archives and dealing with paper. And so, you know, it's digital humanities provides a lot of tools, but there's a pretty steep learning curve. So I had the fortunate privilege of having two fellowships the past few years. One was with a group called DEF CON, which is Digital Ethnic Futures. It was funded by the Mellon Foundation, and this is a professor out of Dartmouth. And part of her fellowship was, I don't know, $1 million or something like that. She was building cohorts of people who were interested in DH and ethnic studies. And so I had the chance to kind of join that and represent community colleges, and there was a whole kind of learning development there. And it was sort of through that work that I learned about the DH conference. That's one point. The other fellowship I did at Bakersfield College, and folks might have seen some of the programming I did the last couple of years, was with the Whiting Foundation, and that was really focused on the Central Valley and using local landmarks in the valley associated with migrant agricultural history. And as part of that work, I developed the non-credit course series here called Landmarks in California History that has a DH component, which is mostly mapping. So for teaching, I do surveys to students using GIS, our GIS account that we have at Bakersfield College, and they get to kind of map their family history and share artifacts. And so all of that is a kind of a DH approach that I kind of had going. And when I applied to the scholarship, I kind of leveraged that and the application. And what I would get out of this conference was, looking at other models of how DH is done, whether it's mapping or ethnic studies, et cetera. So I thought it would be helpful, especially if you've never heard of digital humanities, to kind of define it for a moment. It's really the intersection of the humanities, right? The traditional humanities disciplines like history or philosophy, English, with technology. And what I encountered when I went to the conference is there was a kind of mixture of people. So I was a newbie. I had never been and have very minimal technological skill. And then you have folks at the conference who they do technology, like they're technologists, they do coding. So it was a really cool mixture of folks. And then you have the so-called digital humanists, people who have been kind of walking that line between, coming into the digital humanities world from a humanities background, but are getting quite good at how they use technology. So it was a cool experience for me. And the $500 supplemented my travel, in addition to some other funding I was able to kind of scrape together to go to DC. The definitions that I pulled from the UC library are also helpful, that there is no single or universally agreed upon definition of digital humanities among practitioners. And again, it's really the intersection of computational tools and humanities questions. And it's also about engaging with digital technologies in humanities research and resource sharing. And so it's that latter point about research sharing that I was really attracted to. So to go back to the example that I gave with my landmarks in California history class, where I have students do mapping, they're producing archives, right? They're using, their phones and contributing and taking a survey and then creating an archive. And so as I've run this course over the past few years, it's starting to build a digital repository, basically free of charge, that lives online. And so that's the resource sharing element, right? Students produce these non-disposables that then can become interpreted in some other capacity. And it was really cool to see some of the work that folks are doing in DH with archives building. That was another real takeaway that I took from the project. One other thing I just wanted to share about this conference, I've been to dozens and dozens of conferences over my academic life, but this is the first where we got to use the Wova app. So I don't know if anybody's used this before, but to me, it's like so smart in the future of conferences. It's basically an app, for running conferences, and, the agendas are up to date. It has a note-taking function, so you could be in your sessions, diggling on your phone. And you can also communicate with people, share photos, and keep up with people after the fact. So I really, really like the Wova conference app. And the other thing is the conference was 100% hybrid. So just like we're doing this right now, pretty good, right? Props to all the folks who are running this. The DH conference was entirely, all sessions were on Zoom and in person, and it ran really, really well. And you could do it from your laptop, you could be in person, or you could be on your phone. And so the Wova app was just excellent. This is a photo I snapped of one of the sessions I went to, where you have a number of people there in person, but in this case all the attendees were not physically in Washington, D.C. They were at various parts of the globe. Again, this is an international conference, but the audio is clear. And again, it was just, for me, I hadn't been to a professional conference that did this so well. I thought it was, is this a relic of COVID? It was like, no, this is just a smarter way to run conferences. So I'll shift now to talking about something that was deeply meaningful to me. I mean, there were lots of sessions I attended, like there was stuff on AI and some of the laws that are happening in Europe around kind of controlling AI and how that might impact like things like watermarking. I attended this one mind-blowing session on civil rights where um, folks from universities in the South were mapping correspondence to James Meredith, who was a civil rights kind of hero who uh, got persecuted in some ways by white supremacist groups as he was trying to integrate schools in the South, and so they were mapping the correspondence. That was really cool. But the one for me that was like, this is why I went, was that earlier in the week that I was there, the Library of Congress, the LOC, they did a whole day orientation for scholars, and what they did is they brought together the various archives and research arms of the Library of Congress, and did a kind of run through of the resources that the LOC has, both physically, right, in DC as well as online. And so that was extremely helpful because if you've ever, used any Library of Congress stuff, it can be overwhelming. And the LOC is trying to do digitization, but like, they have, it's just countless, countless the number of paper and photographs that they actually have. Um, for me, the American Folklife Center, which is one of the arms of the LOC, was the thing I was just super excited about, mostly because as a historian, they have a great fellowship program for people who are working on book projects. And so I've known some historians who've spent, residencies there, summer or sometimes year-long fellowships as they do their book. So I was like super excited about that one. And I had never been to the LOC, so we got to kind of go, and if you've been to DC, you go underground and, it's just really cool. And they walk you through, again, the resources, introducing the archivists, how to navigate their physical and digital collections. Again, it was super rad. And one takeaway magic moment that I'll remember was talking with the archivist for the Folklife Center about the Glenn Piercy collection. So Glenn Piercy was a photographer in the 1960s. Later, he became, a cinematographer, as I note there, director. And Glenn was married to a woman named Susan. And so I came to know about Glenn through his wife, Susan. So Susan is an artist, and you can see some of her artwork there on the screen. And as a historian of California, a civil rights historian, one of the hats that I wear right now is I'm the historical consultant to the National Park Service in the redoing or the reimagining of the National Monument in Keene, California, where Cesar Chavez is buried. And so we're currently redoing the exhibit. And in 2027, they're going to open the monument revised, and Susan's artwork is going to be there. And so that's what you see in her artwork on the side there on the screen. And it has these strong Mexican motifs, right? But Susan is an Anglo woman, right, married to Glenn, an Anglo man. And so to talk to the archivist about the Piercys was a really kind of magical moment for me. And Glenn, his photography is at the LOC. It's not digitized though, so I was able to kind of get into that, using the kind of knowledge that I had, but again, just those personal conversations that wouldn't happen any other way. And I put this quote here because I thought it was brilliant, and again, it hits home to me. This is from an oral history that happened with Susan about her time in Greater Bakersfield, right? So she says, "I moved with my husband Glenn from Georgia to the UFW headquarters at La Paz," and she remembered Glenn, her husband, receiving a phone call, right, from Richard Cook inviting us to consider joining the movement. Glenn as a photographer for El Malcriado, which is the farmworker newspaper, and her own involvement unclear. She, again, came to be the artist. We made a special trip to La Paz before making a decision, as we thought the work might be too similar to what we were doing with the civil rights movement in the South. So both of the Piercys had been in Georgia in the aftermath, of King's assassination, doing all of this work documenting the civil rights movement, and then they come out west. They come out west to Kern County, and she says, we were introduced to quesadillas by the Cooks upon our arrival, and then they basically decide to make the move. So again, I wouldn't have had that kind of magic moment of doing all this kind of work in Bakersfield, but then being across the country and being able to kind of connect with the LOC archivists about not only the work that I'm doing at La Paz, but with the Piercy collection. So that was just a magical takeaway for me. And then I'll close with saying, you know, I pride myself on integrating family into everything I do. So my wife and I were fortunate enough to bring our children. They had never been to Washington, D.C. before. The part of the DH conference had a digital tour of Mount Vernon. And so after we did that, we were able to take the boat, you know, down the Potomac and go see, you know, George Washington's home. And my youngest son, Ocean, in the middle, was super excited about eating George Washington's hoe cakes, his pancakes that he had every day. So looking at the time, I'll pause. But again, thanks so much for professional development for allowing us to speak about this. And again, just really glad that y'all provided this space for us. So thank you.
Thank you. So we don't have Christy Wilson?
No.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Oliver, for that presentation. It looks like one of our presenters was not able to make it today, and so that means we do have some extra time for questions. So I want to just ask, are there any questions? We can ask questions of Eleonora, of Oliver, or of me, of PDC in general. So what questions do we have? And we have Dan monitoring the Zoom, so if you're on Zoom, you can go ahead and ask questions as well.
I just say they do cooler things than psychologists.
So if you didn't hear that on Zoom, Jessica said that they do cooler things than psychologists do. Psychologists can do cool things. See, we have some Zoom. There we go.
Can I ask a question to the PDC folks? My question was just as you think about the budget that your committee is allocated, is that kind of an annual thing, or is the administration, are they looking to increase that, or is there anything? I mean, I love how you're measuring this. This is awesome. And I just, you know, hopefully this is making a case, right, for admin to increase that, or I don't know if that's a set thing or that kind of thing.
So as of right now, it is a set thing. I think we have, it's like $5,000 total, and then we do our $500 scholarship. And so we kind of, you know, allot that. Not everyone requests the $500, and so some are more, some are less. And so right now it is kind of like that set amount, but we are trying to make the case that that should be increased. And this is kind of one of those ways that we could justify it, like what we are bringing back to the campus community. That's also one of the parts of the session, is I also want to just raise awareness that we have the scholarship, because there are usually still funds left over at the end of every academic year. And so if we're not using all the funds, then there's no reason to increase. And so I also want to raise awareness that it is here, it is available, please apply. And the more people that take advantage of it, the more eyes we have on it from the higher ups, and a greater chance of increasing that. So thank you for that question, Oliver.
Tina does have her
Oh, yes.
hand raised.
Hi, thank you. So you might have answered this, and if you did, I apologize. I'm fairly new as full-time faculty. I've only been here, well, I'm in my third year, but anyways. So to actually look into this, how does a person look into this? And like I said, I have a feeling you already said the website and I missed it when I was grabbing my coffee or something. I'm sorry. But what are the actual steps to look into how to find out about this and the parameters and all of that? What is their website address?
Yes, yes. So you can find the application on the Bakersfield College Professional Development Committee website. So if you're on the main Bakersfield College website, I usually just kind of type in the search box, Professional Development Committee, or just committees in general, and then you can get to our committees page from there. And then here's a screenshot from that. Once you're there, there's a tab here, it's for resources, and then it's under the resources tab under forms, and it's the first link. So there is kind of a few clicks to get there, which is sort of just how the committee pages are set up.
I'm going there now to make sure, and then I'll bookmark it.
Yeah, there's a few clicks to get there. So that's how you can find the form. But I do want to kind of turn over things to maybe Eleonora or Oliver if they want to share their experience of actually filling out that form and what that was like, or if they have any tips or tricks. Eleonora?
I'm trying to think about the form. I mean, it was a pretty, I mean, it's not a lengthy process. I don't think you have to kind of justify you need to describe what you're gonna do, kind of justify what you're bringing back to the community. You need to present a budget and have, like your, kind of like that, I forget what the form is, but like that form that you have your administrator kind of sign about, like approve all funds or whatnot. It wasn't a difficult process. I thought that there could be some things that could be clarified on the form.
Yeah, I see like where there's an email address here, not actually a form on here, though.
It should be, let me see, Dan, can we go to the website?
Sure.
And then while we do that, Oliver, do you want to share? I think you.
Yeah, as I recall, isn't it like a 500-word narrative, something like that, or 250 to 500 words? Or I mean, to me, grant writing, it's basically what it is. Just you focus on outcomes. You could look at the flex outcomes that you do. Is it achieving those particular outcomes? And it's just basic grant writing.
Thank you for that. So we're going to the website and then we'll screen share.
Okay, that would be awesome.
Sorry.
Yeah, so we're gonna go to the website and then we'll screen share so that we can walk through how to actually get.
How to
the
get to the right information. Yeah, I'm sure I'm just on the wrong page.
But here's the main Bakersfield College website. And then in the search box, we're gonna type Professional Development Committee. This also is a good check for me to make sure that the form is there and it works. Okay, so if we scroll down a little bit, it'll be the first link. And then here's our committee page. So I need to update things for spring. But if we scroll, I think the chat's covering it right now,
Oh.
Dan. If we go right here and we click on resources.
Oh, sorry. Jumped again. Oh, rats.
These pages are fun. So this is the main landing page and you can find out about like our agendas for our meetings and stuff, but to find the form, you want to go to resources.
Okay, it's in the recesses link. I got it.
It's the first link under forms. And then we start
Scholarship application. Okay.
everything that you'll need, and then this begins the application.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
You are very welcome. And as Eleanor said, some things could be clarified, and that is one of our goals as a committee this semester is to work on updating and clarifying, but for right now, this is the form as it exists, and we might make some changes, but as of now, this is what it is. So did that help everyone find it?
How many applicants do you get? Do you get like a lot of applicants?
We, not a ton, unfortunately. I think it's maybe a lack of awareness. So I just started as the chair in last March, so I kind of picked it up in the middle. And I was on the committee for a few years before that, and to my knowledge, we never exceeded our funding cap. And so we weren't getting a ton, but it is something that we would like to promote and get more of.
Okay, and when are the deadlines?
We ask that you submit the application at least 30 days before the event that you are hoping to attend with funding.
Okay, it's not just like one annual time and everything's decided for the year then.
It is rolling, but one of our updates that we are going to make on the form, just so everyone knows, is we need to put like an end date for the end of spring, because since the committee is partly comprised of faculty are not active over the summer on committees, and so we can't be voting on applications over the summer. And so any of the ones that we get after the spring and before the fall just kind of go into like a waiting period until we're back in the fall. And so we don't have that official deadline yet, but that is one of the quick updates we want to do on our application.
Cool, thank you.
Oh, and then there's another question. Can adjuncts apply? Yes, adjuncts can apply. I believe our form says that it's for full-time employees, but we as a committee kind of ignore that. And so adjuncts are welcome to apply. Please do ignore that part of the form. Because we've never said no to an adjunct to apply simply because they were an adjunct, so go ahead and apply. You don't really say no to many people. That would be the question, can adjuncts apply? Yes, please do. Other questions for me or our presenters?
Those were terrific presentations. Yeah, awesome.
They're really good. I got so jealous.
Yeah, so these are the kinds of things that you can do with our PDC funding. You can go to conferences, travel, and again, it's $500, so it's not necessarily going to fund the entire event, but it can fund part of the event. And then as a committee, we do ask that you share what you've learned, and this is one avenue for people to share what they've learned. If you would prefer to do your own solo flex presentation to share what you've learned, you may do that. Or if you feel that your presentation is very specific and best suited for an interdepartmental type of presentation, you're welcome to do that. Or we've also discussed that maybe people could share what they've learned through other means, like maybe writing a blog post, their academic technology blog, or anything that you think might best fit. But we just ask that you bring back what you've learned and share it with the campus community. Okay. If there are no other questions, we can adjourn a little bit early today. All right, thank you everyone for attending and have a wonderful rest of your week and good luck with your classes.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Maybe.